Here we go, week 4 of #struggles. If you have your Bibles, Mark chapter 1. How are we doing, Verge? Are we good tonight? Man, that's not as much energy as I'd hoped for. Let me try that one more time. How are we doing tonight, Verge? There we go. Hey, I'm doing great. And I'm doing great because this time tomorrow night, I will have enjoyed the greatest pizza in the history of the world at Giordano's Pizza in Chicago, Illinois. Like, I am in a really good spot right now, okay? And so tonight I'm excited, but I'm excited to get into the Word tonight and to continue this #struggle series. And as we continue this series tonight, tonight's message is really a difficult message for everyone in this room to try to process tonight. Because the thing that we are going to talk about tonight is something that is the single greatest struggle for your generation, and that's the idea of being compassionate. You are the first generation in humanity that simply doesn't care. And I'm not saying that about you individually, like, man, you're a jerk, but just like we watched on this video to open tonight. This idea that you are on social media and you're looking at all of these different posts coming at you. One second you see a post that's funny and you laugh and you're like sharing it like crazy. The next moment you see a post where someone says, my family member's dying of cancer. And the next post you see somebody saying, man, I couldn't find the right outfit today. The next post you see somebody's posting senior pics. The next post you see this, and you see all these different posts. And as you see all this information, they all look the same. And as they all look the same, you're trying to figure out what you feel about each one. And what you turn out to realize is that you're not really feeling anything. Because you think about it tonight, I just got to know where you are in the room tonight. I just want to know, when's the last time you really cared about something bad that happened to somebody else? Like, not just, oh, I'm sorry, I'm praying for you. Like, it literally made you physically ill to consider that somebody had something bad happen to them. That you read a post on social media about somebody's really unfortunate circumstance and it literally made you sick to your stomach. Odds are, according to all the research that's been done about this very issue, odds are the vast majority of us in this room have not had an experience like that within the last month. Some would say that many of you in the room have not had an experience like that within the last year. And if things continue to trend according to how the research shows, based on how addicted we are to these little screens that are in front of us, some of you moving forward will not experience that in your lifetime. Because over time, we have forgotten how to care. We just don't care. 1979, they surveyed teenagers, curious about how they were in regards to compassion. Like, if something bad happened to one of their friends, how likely they were to respond, how likely they were to go and hang out with that person, how likely they were to weep with someone who weeps. They did that same survey this last year. That same exact survey found that teenagers today are 40% less likely to care than they were 40 years ago. And that number has skyrocketed since we've been attached to these screens that are in front of our faces. So what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do with that disciple of Jesus? Because here's the issue for us in this room. It's not okay for a disciple of Jesus to not care. It's not. Like, it is not okay for you and I to see the suffering and the pain and the hurt in this world and to not care about it. Like, that's not okay. It's not okay for you to see posts on social media about really bad things happening and as a disciple of Jesus not care about it. And so tonight, the reason I say it's not okay for us to not care about it is because when we look at the person of Jesus, that home dude cared. He cared. He cared so much that he got physically ill at the brokenness of humanity. He got physically ill when someone was outcast by society. And so tonight, man, I hope you will journey and track with me. Because this week, I've gotten to go kind of through the ringer myself, trying to wrestle with this reality. Because here's the thing, it's a struggle for me to care. As a pastor, I get emails every single day delivered that are either prayer requests or a hospital list or a loss of loved one form, where I am seeing every single day tragic things happen over and over and over again. And I'm having to ask myself the question, Chad, when is the last time you cared? When is the last time I have been moved by compassion? And as I got into this text, it opened my eyes to some really incredible things. So Mark chapter 1, we'll start in verse 40. It says, a leper came to him, imploring him and kneeling, said to him, if you will, you can make me clean. Now, as we get into this tonight and looking at compassion, it's important for us to see that this leper came to Jesus. And the beauty of this leper coming to Jesus is that lepers in that culture were cast out by society, literally. They were put outside the city in their own special place. They weren't allowed to interact with other people. They were kind of shunned to the side. It would be the equivalent today of the outcast that's at your school, that maybe isn't sitting at a table filled with people. That maybe is a person that's kind of the lone wolf, if you will, that kind of really doesn't have a friend group that they hang with. They're just kind of off to their side. And you know who that person is because you avoid them. You're not the one going and interacting with that person. You see them and you do what everybody else has done and you just kind of cast them to the side. And that's what this dude is. And in this moment, we discover that Jesus puts his eye on this. And as we think about this reality for us, understand this about compassion. Compassion sees the outcast. And y'all, I'm not talking like a glance at the outcast, like, oh, you see that out the corner of your eye, and you see it out the corner of your eye, so you just keep going, because if you actually turned your eye to that, you might have to do something about it. No, what compassion does is it catches a glimpse, and then it casts its eye on the outcast. It casts his eye on that person that's difficult to love. It casts his eye on that person that's having a difficult time. It casts his eye on that person that's crying, that's hurting, that's weeping. It casts his eye on someone that needs something. You see, the problem a lot of times for us when it comes to compassion is that we never open our eyes. We're too busy looking at ourselves. We're too busy concerning ourselves with who we're going to get to sit with at lunch. We're too concerned with who we're going to see between classes at school. We're too concerned with who we're going to get to see in the parking lot after school. We're too concerned with our friends to have compassion for the world around us. Because listen, here's the reality. There's hurting people all over your school. All over your school, there are people that experience loneliness every day. Every single day. There's people that go and they sit probably in the same exact spot at lunch, isolated and alone, wanting someone to say what's up. And what compassion does is compassion sees that. Compassion opens its eyes to realize that there's some hurting going on and there's a need that needs to be met. And y'all, tonight, it's kind of heavy. It's harsh because we all struggle with this reality of having compassion. And so to help us with this, there's a clip from a movie that probably many of you know. It's a really popular movie from several years ago, and there's a scene. And I want you to listen to the words of this character as he reflects on this moment in his life. Let's check it out.
You do your very best now, Forrest. I sure will, Mama.
I remember the bus ride on the first day of school very well.
Are you coming along?
Mama said not to be taking rides from strangers.
This is the bus to school.
I'm Forrest Gump.
I'm Dorothy Harris.
Well, now we ain't strangers anymore. It's taken. Taken. Can't sit here.
You know, it's funny what a young man recollects, 'cause I don't remember being born.
I don't recall what I got for my first Christmas. I don't know when I went on my first outdoor picnic, but I do remember the first time I heard the sweetest voice in the wide world.
You can sit here if you want.
I had never seen anything so beautiful in my life. She was like an angel.
Well, you're gonna sit down, aren't you? What's wrong with your legs? I'm nothing at all, thank you. My legs are just fine and dandy.
I just sat next to her on that bus and had a conversation all the way to school.
My back's crooked like a question mark. These are gonna make me
And next to
straight
Mama,
and narrow. They're
no
not
one
magic
ever talked to
shoes.
me or asked me questions.
Are you stupid or something? Mama says stupid as stupid does. I'm Jenny. I'm Forrest Gump.
From that day on, we was always together. Jenny and me was like peas and carrots. She taught me how to climb.
Forrest, you can do it!
Hey, that's a moment in that movie that many people know because of him getting on the bus. And we know those moments when somebody different comes around. Because our natural reaction when somebody's different is to push them to the side. But did you catch what he said? He said, I don't remember the day I was born. I don't remember what I got for my first Christmas. But I do remember the first time I heard that voice. Who is it that could be sitting at your school that's needing to experience remembering the first time they heard your voice? The first time that you went into their isolation reality and invited them in to experience community. Who is it that could be at your school that's hurting right now that just needs you to say, you can sit with me? Because as a disciple of Jesus Christ, we're going to see what happens when Jesus sees the outcast. Once Jesus takes the time to see their reality. And my question for you is this as we start tonight. Do you see the outcasts at your school? Do you see them? Or are you just glancing as you go trying to take care of you? Because compassion doesn't just get a glancing look. Compassion looks and sees the reality of their isolation. Verse 41. Moved with pity, Some translations say moved with compassion. He stretched out his hand and touched him and said to him, I will be clean. And immediately the leprosy left him and he was made clean. You see, compassion doesn't just see the outcast, y'all. Compassion does something. Here, Jesus doesn't just say, oh, look, there's a guy with leprosy. Tough luck, man. That's tough. That guy's just been dealt a difficult hand in life. Like, he's got this disease that caused everybody to cast him out of society. And man, feel bad for you, bro. Like, I'm just feeling like, look, hey, I'm going to say a special prayer for you tonight, all right? Thinking about you. And that's what we do. That's what we do on social media. Somebody posts something on Facebook. Somebody puts something on Twitter, on Instagram that's bad news. We like it. We reply and we say, man, hate to hear that, praying for you. And as I think about this idea of compassion, Jesus literally touched the untouchable. In that culture, you didn't touch somebody with leprosy. You did not physically touch them. But Jesus, filled with compassion, touched the dude. He touched him. He blew right past every societal norm, every cultural standard. Jesus blew right past it, and he literally touched the dude. He's like, you know what? You want to be healed? I'm going to do something. And I think the world's just waiting for disciples of Jesus to do something when it comes to compassion. I really do. Because the reality is this. Our world is not compassionate, y'all. Our world is selfish. Our world is just concerned with us. That is the reality of our world. Our world is not going to feel sorry for humanity. But Jesus did. I started watching this show recently, and I should have been watching it a long time ago. I got the recommendation to watch it, and I blew right past it. It was the greatest TV mistake of my life, okay? You guys know I love The Office, and that is my show. But a show that is quickly becoming like my TV jam is Superstore, okay? And I don't know if any of you have watched the show Superstore, but y'all, it is hilarious. Like, I've been watching it for like 3 straight days and laughing out loud like on repeat. I absolutely love it. And there's this one episode where there's one of the main characters is a guy named Jonah, who's a really sharp dude, witty, he's funny. You wouldn't expect a guy like him to be working like at a store like this, but he's working there, and just a really nice guy. And there's a guy named Garrett who's been an employee there for a while. He's in a wheelchair, and one day Jonah's wanting to help people. And Garrett makes the comment to him like, dude, you don't want to do that. And Jonah's like, why not? Like, that's our job. We're here to help people. Like, we want to help them have a good experience. He's like, no. He's like, that's quicksand. He's like, quicksand? What do you mean? He's like, when you go to help somebody, it's not just you helping them. You're going to get stuck. And you're going to be there all day because you're not going to be able to get out of the opportunity to help people. And in that reality, in watching that show and seeing that scene, it made me realize that is where we are as human beings. We don't have time to care. Like, listen, you don't want to go deal with that hurting person because you're going to open up a can that you can't stop. If you go talk to that person, you might actually have to be their friend moving forward. And so, because I don't want to have to go be that friend, because I don't want to experience the quicksand of caring, I'm just not going to care. But that's not the way a disciple of Jesus is supposed to operate. Jesus in this moment said, sorry, dude. He didn't say, sorry, dude, don't have time for your leprosy. I'm too busy saving the world to deal with your leprosy. No, Jesus put his eye on him, and then Jesus did something. Y'all, compassion can be messy, and compassion takes time. But here's the thing about compassion that you and I have to see. Compassion follows the example of Jesus. Period. Period. If you and I are not being compassionate, we are not following Jesus. Chad, you can't go there. Because, listen, I'm a pretty good kid, Chad. And I follow Jesus. If you and I are not compassionate, y'all, we aren't following Jesus. We're not. You look in the New Testament, there's several occurrences of it saying, Jesus filled with compassion, he does something. Jesus filled with compassion, he does something. Jesus filled with compassion, he does something. Y'all, you and I, as disciples of Jesus, as little Christ, it is our task to be a compassionate people so that the world can see him. And compassion does something. So my question right now is this: what are you doing? What is it that you're doing? What are you doing to meet the need of that person that's hurting? What are you doing to empty yourself for the betterment of someone else? What are you doing to demonstrate compassion? Verse 43. And here's like a crazy interaction that happens between Jesus and this dude. Jesus sternly charged him and sent him away at once and said to him, "See that you say nothing to anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest, and offer for your cleansing what Moses commanded for a proof to them." Man, Jesus heals this dude, and then Jesus says, "Don't tell anybody about it." Like, is that not the weirdest instruction ever? Like, I just healed you of a disease that caused you to be cast out by society, and here's what I need you to do. Don't say anything about it. Just walk up to the priest and be like, "Hey, here's what is required for you to know that I've been healed and I've been cleansed." But when you go hang out with your friends, don't tell them what happened. Like, y'all, I don't know about you, but every time that God has shown up in my life, I want to talk about it. Like, I'm pretty sure if I was living as a leper and all of a sudden my skin goes from having nasty stuff all over it to being clean, I'm going to be going around to people like, "What's up?" You know he was going to a homegirl that wouldn't have anything to do with him in that moment, and he was like, "What's up? See this? Look at this skin. This skin's been touched by Jesus," you know? And what Jesus is saying is you can't tell her that. What you got to do is you got to hang out by yourself. You got to just go and live, but not let anybody know what just happened to you. And here's what is really cool about this moment. As much of Jesus' ministry was about bringing glory to himself and to the Father, in this moment, Jesus was only concerned about the needs of that man. And that gives us a beautiful picture of compassion, because compassion is not about me. And this is maybe the hardest part of compassion for us. Because we have convinced ourselves that we are a compassionate people because we go on mission trips. Oh yeah, we go on mission trips. We go on mission trips to Canada, to Oklahoma, to Texas, to Africa, to Nicaragua, to Belize, to Honduras, to China. We go all over the place on mission trips, which is really awesome. That would be a compassionate thing to do, because you're going to demonstrate love to a people that need love. There's one small issue with that. One small issue to where it becomes a question of whether it is compassion or not. It's the mission trip selfie. You know what I'm talking about. Some of you are like, "Are you serious right now? That's a good pic." Like, I got a lot of likes, Chad. Like, a lot of likes. Like, people love that pic. And let me just tell you, it's adorable. It is a great pic. It is awesome. It is incredible. But here's my question. Would you be willing to go and do those things you do and not ever be able to tell anybody what you did? For many of you, the answer to that question is, "Yeah, Chad, I could do that." Absolutely. If they never posted a picture on social media for the world to see what I did with a week of my summer, I would be completely gold with that. But for some of you, when I asked that question, you were like, "No." Because you want people to see the things that you do. You want people to look and see that you went and hung out with some underprivileged kid and you loved on that kid and you hung out with that kid and you want the world to see you doing a good thing. At that point, it ceases being compassion and it's just you looking for glory. You see, at that point, you're not concerned about the needs of that person. You're concerned about how many people are going to like you. And that is not compassion, because compassion is not about you. It's not about me. Compassion is always completely focused on the well-being of other people. And that's what's so cool about the potential you and I have as disciples of Jesus. Because here's the thing. You and I get to go into a world that's not naturally compassionate, and we get to demonstrate compassion. You and I get to go and we get to see the people at your school that are hurting, and all of a sudden we get to actually do something to meet a tangible need. We get the opportunity to intersect somebody at their point of weakness and offer them hope, because we know what it is to experience and know compassion. Y'all, compassion demonstrates we are a disciple of Jesus because it shows the world that it's no longer about us. Guys, when you start sitting with different people at lunch because they maybe have been pushed to the side, you're demonstrating compassion. When you take a moment to not go talk to your friend group right between classes because you see somebody that's kind of alone and down and out, you're demonstrating compassion. When you take the time to maybe help somebody get to the next class because you can tell that they're alone, that they don't have a group of friends that are going to come and hang out with them, y'all, that's demonstrating compassion. When you see someone walking around the hall and you notice that they're hurting and you take the time to ask and get involved with their hurt, you've demonstrated compassion. Y'all, compassion is not difficult. It's not. It's not like you have to go and give the rest of your life to just hanging out with this person because they're hurting in one particular moment. No, what it means is you make yourself available at all moments for the purpose of demonstrating God's love to the world. And so as you open your eyes and you see and you begin to do something, you're reminded every day that it's not about you. Because Jesus gave us the example of it being completely about others. And so my question is this for you to think about. Has compassion moved you beyond yourself? Like honestly, has compassion moved you beyond you? To where when you're walking down the hall tomorrow, it's not about you, but it's about others. And as you consider that question, let's look at verse 45. You notice he told dude not to say anything? Look what dude did. But he went out and began to talk freely about it and to spread the news so that Jesus could no longer openly enter a town, but was out in desolate places, and people were coming to him from every quarter. You see, once compassion is demonstrated by us doing something, y'all, compassion affects the world. Jesus told the dude not to say anything. Homeboy couldn't keep it to himself. He couldn't keep it to himself, y'all. Jesus says, don't say anything. Dude's like, I don't even care what Jesus just said. Like, I don't even care. There's no way I'm not telling everybody about this. And here's what's crazy. He started telling so many people, the news started spreading. Jesus couldn't go anywhere. Jesus couldn't go anywhere. People were coming out of the woodworks to find Jesus. Even when he was in the desolate places, even when he was in a place that was hard to find, people were still finding Jesus. Because when you and I demonstrate compassion, y'all, it affects things. I guarantee you this, tomorrow, you walk to your school with a purpose of reaching out to those people that are hurting and have been cast out by your school for whatever reason, it's going to affect some things. It is. People are going to take notice of that, y'all. And the reason they're going to take notice is because that doesn't happen every day. That doesn't happen. And the people that are going to be most affected by it are the people that are experiencing love that they haven't been experienced because they're sitting alone. They've been cast out. They've been living in isolation, and they are getting the moment that somebody comes to them and says, I care about you. I care about you enough to say you can sit with me. I'll never forget moving here 3 years ago. Well, almost 3 years ago. It'll be 3 years here in a couple of weeks. And it doesn't seem like it's been 3 years. Some days it feels like it's been 30 years. Other days it feels like it's been 3 months. But I remember moving here 3 years ago. And moving was a difficult experience for me because I'm a dad. And this is the first time I've moved and I've had children that I've had to move across the country. And I'll never forget Cooper's last day of school in Austin when we were moving, and Cooper was saying goodbye to all his buddies. Y'all, I was a blubbering mess. I mean, Cooper didn't know. Cooper was like 5. Cooper had no clue. I had a clue, and I was a wreck. And I'll never forget moving here, and we got here, and our first day here was GS Fest. GS Fest, we got here, and I'll never forget Molly and Max Henry, and then Grace Lowry coming up to Cooper and saying, hey, why don't you come with us? And they took him all over GS Fest. And then the following night, we went trick-or-treating with their families. And that's also when I knew I was going to be in trouble with Cooper, because that night as he was trick-or-treating, he had acclimated well, and these girls did a really good job of loving on him, because in a moment, he's walking down the street hand in hand with 2 girls. I think we got a picture of that, just so you can see how well Cooper acclimated to the area. Yeah. He gets it honest, okay? I'm just saying, like, we're going to have to process through that with him as he gets older. But I remember when I took this picture, and if you notice, you could tell that it's way back, because that's all people from Austin that liked the photo. Like, y'all didn't know to like the photo at that point. And so, which is really weird to see. Like, that kind of made me sad for a little bit today. But as I was looking at this, I remember taking that picture. And as a dad, it was just so cool to see my son going into a brand new place where he didn't know anybody, and all of a sudden he's known. And what Molly and Grace and Max didn't realize is they affected our family. Because they saw the kid that didn't know anybody and they said, come hang out with me. They didn't even realize in that moment that they had demonstrated compassion. And you know how I know they demonstrated compassion? Is because they saw a little boy who didn't know anybody. And because he didn't know anybody, they decided to introduce themselves. So I guess you could say they did something. And in doing something, they basically made the choice that it's not about them, because they could have gone to GS Fest, they could have gone trick-or-treating and done their thing, but they chose to show the new kid that they cared. And in showing the new kid that they cared, it affected things. Who's needing to be affected by your life? Who is it that's needing to be affected by the gospel because of your presence? Because you see, the sad part about you and I not being a compassionate people is that it keeps people from seeing the gospel of Jesus. Because when you and I demonstrate compassion, we demonstrate Jesus. You see, the struggle is not about the phones causing us not to care. The struggle is that we're not looking at Jesus enough to demonstrate him to the world around us. So as we wrap tonight, let's consider this. Are you compassionate?